Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and thank you very much for joining us on these daily broadcasts on the Car Dealer Magazine YouTube channel, where we talk to people right across the industry. Now, today on the show, I'm delighted to say we're chatting to Mike Jones, Chairman of ASE Global. Hello, Mike.
Afternoon, how are you?
Very good, thank you. And thanks for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Now, ASE Global will be a very familiar name to you all, as the firm provides data for dealers and it's been doing that for over half a century. Now, Mike himself has been at ASE Global for 19 years, I think, when it was previously, was it Trevor Jones?
Yep.
Before being incorporated into ASE PLC in 2009. Now, he's one of the leading experts on dealer profitability and analysing retail performance. Now, I've got plenty of questions to ask him in the next 20 minutes or so, but if you've got a question to ask Mike, then please do pop it into the comments box and I'll do my best to ask it. Let's get cracking then, Mike. So you've announced some news today, which if people haven't caught up on it, it is the average dealer lost £63,000 in April. Now that is a huge figure, but it was always going to be low though, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, April was the height of the lockdown. We had showrooms weren't allowed to open. Lots of businesses had closed down their after sales and were only starting to open that back up. And we hadn't yet had the clarification that it was okay to do click and collect. So no, it was. I mean, that was really it was expected to be bad. I mean, the number of submissions that we've had in that I've been able to analyse is obviously nowhere near as large as normal, and therefore there is a bit of a caveat. This is the average of the info that we've got. I'll be updating it as we go forwards, but not unexpected. And also, I think it's going to be better in May. As we start seeing a little bit more car sales activity and a bit more after sales activity, and then obviously we've got back to the new normal in June.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are quite a few dealers out there who they're not sort of disappointed that it's £63,000, but they're also a little bit surprised that it could have been even more, really.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the people that I've been chatting to, it could have been worse when they initially did the "oh my God, what's going to happen" scenario planning. The predicted loss was greater in April and certainly in May than we've been seeing. I mean, the consumer has been quite willing to get some of the service work done, to get some of the to be interested in searching for cars and ultimately buying cars. And so there's actually been more activity than I think people were expecting, and it's not quite been as bad. And plus, obviously, some of the suppliers have come to the party as well and gave discounts, etc., to help retailers through the challenging times.
Yes. Well, many dealers that we've been speaking to on these Car Dealer Live broadcasts, many people have, when I posed the question of, how lockdown has been for you, you're sort of half expecting the answer to be, well, it's been lovely. I've been sitting out in the garden in the sun. It's been marvelous. But the vast majority of dealers that I've spoken to have all said, well, in actual fact, we were incredibly busy. Business was pretty much like normal. Yes, there wasn't that direct customer interaction, but it was a real test for dealers' communication strategies, for their customer service. And what with service work, they were very busy.
Yeah, I think a lot of the dealers that did stay open from an after-sales point of view, some of the businesses around them had closed, and so they got a concentration from that point of view. I mean, I was going out with the sort of daily briefings as we went through, taking some of the learnings that we've got from overseas, because obviously, I mean, the Chinese market didn't start from New Year. It's back running now, and so okay, well, what did we see? And one of the things I said right back at the start is, don't get rid of everybody. We need to make sure the contact teams are still there, because customers will be sitting at home and they will be getting bored, and there will be some pent-up demand and interest there. And we need to respond to those people. And yes, we all have to get used to doing a lot more digitally now, using the videos and email and or on the phone. But there is customer demand there. And I've seen amongst a lot of retailers who kept those people going through April, May, and obviously into June, they've had a fast start. There's been lots of business there that they've been able to deliver, and they are knocking out record numbers in the first little time in June. So I think people as well, as they went through May particularly, realised how much work and how many sales they could get done with quite a small staff. So I think we'll see productivity massively increase during May, and people looking at, well, hold on a minute, who's doing what in the process, and is the potential for me to save some costs going forwards?
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose it's a bit, well, it is a bit too early to say because you've only published April's figures, but I would presume that the figure in May would be a little bit more promising than 63,000.
Yeah, I think the May loss will be lower, and I think that June we will be into a profit, albeit we're obviously very early into June at this particular moment in time. But particularly the used car activity has been strong in the first week and a half, as we expected. People are allowed to go, people are allowed on public transport as of today. Obviously, they need to be wearing face masks, but people are scared and they don't want to do it, and they do want to drive in their cars. And we've seen that across the world with people having, assuming they can park. There has been a return to cars, which is clearly great for car dealers and brands.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially used cars, because of course not everybody can afford to spend a few £100 even on PCP a month on a brand new car. The appeal of a used car is actually very strong at the moment because, like you say, people don't want to go on public transport with a face mask. The whole idea of it is actually very scary.
Yeah, it's nice to have your own little bubble that you can drive around in, and you can make yourself feel safe, because it's not only you've got the fellow passengers that you're putting at risk, but then I think everybody's scared of contracting something and then bringing it back into their household and infecting the people in their house. And so quite naturally, people are looking to take all the precautions they can. I've seen some great stuff actually that we've been pushing out all the way through, with dealers explaining to customers how they're going to keep them safe, what measures we're taking in the cars, what we're doing, and that's really important. We've seen that all around the world, that building that trust level that we're going to keep them safe is vital to the performance improving.
Well, again, it goes back to that point we were making earlier on. It's that customer contact, isn't it? It's about reassuring people that it's absolutely safe to buy a new car or a used car or whatever. And the dealers who are going to come out of this in a better place than they could have done are the ones who have just reminded themselves to carry on talking to customers, reassuring them and putting their minds at ease.
Yeah, I mean, we already had a job to do and a big opportunity actually with the switch to electric vehicles that we're seeing this year and into next year, to help guide customers on that difficult transition and new way of using their mobility, not just being able to stop at a petrol station. So we had the opportunity to dial up the level of trust through doing that well. Coming out of COVID-19 and the lockdown, again, gives us the opportunity to build that trust level with customers, which is key to the industry staying profitable and staying a key part of the customer journey.
Now, it's an interesting point you make there about electric cars, because I remember when I first started in this business 10 years ago, that was the big topic then, which was how can we reassure customers when they come into the showroom that electric car parked in the corner is actually a viable thing to buy. But whereas 10 years now, customers are coming in and dealers are having those conversations with them, and it's not about, is an electric car right for me, but it's about what car is right for me in terms of the mileage that I do. And electric cars, of the acceptance level is far greater now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got there are still range challenges or perceived range challenges from a customer point of view, and if we all get them, then we haven't got anywhere to charge them and we don't create enough power, and so the infrastructure thing, and I'm actually the Chancellor at the start of next month is going to make another large announcement. Now, whether that'll be a scrappage scheme or not, we'll have to see. But I would imagine they're going to go again on infrastructure, electric infrastructure. Overseas, actually, where we've seen a scrappage scheme, or it isn't a scrappage scheme, it's an incentive scheme towards the purchase of an electric vehicle, there's actually shortages of supply. So the customers are going out into 2021 with regards to when they're actually going to get these cars, because they're not physically there. But I mean, we've seen of all the big mega changes, electric is still happening. We've seen shared mobility take a bit of a knock as a result of it was already having problems, but obviously the people's desire to be in their own little bubble doesn't really help shared mobility. But no, electric is going full steam ahead, and dealers have got a great opportunity through that.
Yeah, but that supply issue, I mean, that is a major concern, isn't it? Because it was a concern before coronavirus. You know, can companies like, you know, Samsung and etc. can they make enough batteries for electric cars? And if dealers are having to have that conversation with the customer at this moment in time, saying, look, that particular electric car you want to buy, you know, we're looking at deliveries early 2020, early 2021. That's not doing much for consumer confidence, is it?
No, I mean, I've always said it, you know, with cars and furniture, you turn up, you get all excited, and then you get told you can't have it for months. And it's, you know, and that's why I was saying all the way through that used cars is always the first thing to bounce, and it's always the first thing that goes well because you can see it and you can drive away in it today. And that's that's what people need at the moment. So no, I think it's a blend. The brands have clearly got to hit the CO2 targets, so they're pushing the cars that they've got to get out this year. But once they've got out the number that they need to get out this year in order to hit their CO2 targets from the EU, those cars are then going forward to next year to help meet next year's target.
Yeah, yeah. Would you, I mean, are you sort of supportive of the idea of a scrappage scheme, bringing that back? Or do you think the effects are temporary and we don't really need one at the moment?
We need to make a decision on whether we're having one or not, and we need to get clarity on that, because the rumor of one doesn't help. Because people then just put off purchases just in case one's going to turn up, and then I don't want to have bought a car today that could then be cheaper tomorrow. I think that it would definitely be beneficial. Now, whether it's a scrappage scheme or a scheme to promote electric vehicles, the downside of the electric vehicle promotion is we don't really make them in the UK, so it's not helping UK manufacturing. That's why the SMMT have come out and said that they want a wider scheme. Obviously, in Germany, we've seen a drop in VAT, and I was watching Rishi Sunak on Andrew Marr at the weekend, and he intimated that they might look at some consumption tax decreases, which again help anything that creates a bit of feel-good factor that gives people the idea that they can go out and spend will be beneficial. People are going to be nervous. I think we all know there's going to be some problems and some redundancies, etc., happening as we go through the second half of the year, and there's lots of that coming through in the press. So we just need a balance to that, and anything that helps activity is clearly to be welcomed.
Yeah, I think that clarity message is really needed. I mean, you know, the introduction of the furlough scheme was great because it was done at such short notice. But as we come out of this, we just need clear, clear words to come from the government, and it will help dealers just prepare, really, won't it? And that's what we need at the moment. Yeah, absolutely,
and we do need that with regards to the scrappage scheme. But we've seen with the furlough scheme that a lot of that the government is learning and getting better. I mean, they produced an absolute shed load of updates over the weekend. They have to make mine and your life more difficult. They have a real habit of releasing them on a Friday night.
Yes.
You know, what's wrong with releasing them before a normal sort of weekday? But no, they don't. They release them on a Friday night. And actually, this time, when the furlough scheme was initially introduced, there was lots and lots of debate. I know I was on with James talking about the fact that my belief that commissions should be included within the salesperson's furlough. But with regards to the new scheme and the new part-time scheme that's being launched, there's loads of stuff and loads of great stuff that they've got out on the websites and they've put out. So they are getting better at giving us the information we need in order to be able to manage what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to be negative in the current circumstances, but generally speaking, the furlough scheme has been good for the motor trade, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, there are some people who've fallen down the gaps, and there's also some retail groups that took a pretty hard approach on the salaries to go into furlough. But no, I mean it's been a lifesaver for the trade. Most businesses had more than half their staff on furlough, up to sort of 80%. Now that's been winding down since. It's helped us press the pause button, which is really what it was designed to do. And then we can press play again. We can restart now and move it forwards. It's been, I was very skeptical at the time, but their ability to get it out and get the cash into people's bank accounts prior to the payroll going out, I was amazed by, and they did a brilliant job in that regard. And actually, some of the stuff that we've got going forwards is going to be really helpful as well. The new part-time scheme that's coming in effectively from the start of July, I think is going to be really useful for dealers, because we don't know at the moment what consumer demand is going to be. So the ability to bring people back gradually is going to be really helpful. Or actually, we're digging into the stuff that came in over the weekend as we have done this morning. People that were previously furloughed, so basically the entire sales team, can go back onto part-time working. So even if we brought them back fully now, it appears that we can put them back on part-time furlough from the 1st of July. Because the danger is that we bring people back now to cope with a surge in demand, pent-up demand, because we've not been open for a couple of months, and then that quietens down as we don't need them anymore. It looks like we can stick them back onto part-time furlough, which will clearly enable people to flex the supply of labour effectively with the customer demand as we go through the next few months.
Yeah, that's going to be very, 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 very key for dealers. That and I was particularly interested to read that over the weekend, because I know you and I were chatting about it, and it is an opportunity for dealers to match demand with their workforce, but not rush bringing everybody back and then having to lay them off again. So that's going to be key. We've just had a question come in actually from Bruce. He says, given the reshaping of the current top 10 dealer groups, who will be in the top 5 going forwards? That's a bit of a tricky question to ask, but have you got any data on who's the winners and the losers at the moment?
Everybody's just getting their head out above the ground. I mean, clearly, the really tough thing is that there were some businesses, lots of businesses in the sector, that were having a great start to the year. They had a really strong January and February, and we're actually having a decent March, and we're looking like they were going to hitting record numbers. And then obviously we just stopped 3/4 of the way into our busiest month of the year and went, oh shit. So we've seen some data come out from Virtue as to the fact that they reckon that they lost 20 million, I think it was, in April and May. Marshalls have come out and said that they're with more a medium-term projection. Clearly, amongst the listed groups, Lookers have got a whole raft of issues that they're working through at this particular moment in time, with their profitability being really quite low, and they've got the fraud investigation, and we've stopped talking about the FCA, but that fine will be coming out soon as well. So we've got those. I would see. I'm actually seeing the level of interest in acquisitions and disposals starting to pick up. I was on quite a few calls, last week, with people going, "I'd like to get out," or, you know what, we've been to the government, we've amassed ourselves what in football terms would be called a war chest, and they want to go shopping and looking at reshaping. And I think we will see to my mind, the crisis has pushed the fast forward button on quite a few things. I think we've jumped forward about 5 years on digital adoption from a consumer point of view. We're all very used to doing this. Generationally, if people wanted to speak to their grandkids, they needed to get very used to Zoom and interacting. And so I think we've had a fast forward there. So to my mind, the businesses that make that digital leap successfully will be the ones that will thrive as we come out of this. And we're going to get proper, true omni-channel retailing coming out of this. People have had to have digital journeys on their websites and be able to complete that transaction. So I'm sitting back looking at, right, fine, who's doing that best? Because I think they'll be the real successful players as we come out of this.
Would you say we've got a bit of a fragmented picture at the moment? Because of course it's dealerships in England which have opened. Once everything reopens across the United Kingdom, the picture could be quite different, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that everything's moving at different speeds. So you've got, I mean, I deal with plenty of dealer groups who span borders either over into Wales or up into Scotland, and so you've got everything happening at a different speed, and they're almost having to. On the plus side, they get to trial things and they get to see what works before pushing the button for the whole business. But on the downside, the people in the Scottish and Welsh businesses are absolutely champing at the bit to get going, because they're looking with sort of envious eyes over to England, where they're able to deal with customers. So no, I mean, it seems like it's all starting to open up. It would be very useful to get the whole picture, to get the whole industry started again. We obviously need auctions to really get going as well, because there's plenty of businesses that are short of used cars, having sold them during the lockdown and not been able to replace that stock. So we need that whole ecosystem to start working, and then only then really will we know exactly what the picture is.
Yeah, I mean, we're told that dealerships in Scotland, for instance, there's supposed to be an announcement about that this week. But again, it'd just be nice if there's a bit more clarity. Rumour isn't great at the moment, is it? We just need a bit more clarity.
Yeah, I mean, but people can deal with anything if they're just told what it is. Yeah. So yeah, clarity would be great.
Yeah. Lastly, Mike, as we well know, ASE is not just a UK operation; it's global. So, what are you hearing about dealers in other markets, and is the UK situation different from those?
It's the UK has been slightly behind lots of the other markets. As I said, our Chinese operation never came back from New Year and has then ramped. And what we've seen across the piece, actually all over the world, is that we see a real bounce in a couple of areas. Cheap used cars people want for a mobility solution, as we said earlier on, and also the high-end luxury stuff, or the fun stuff that's in most of the brands. We've seen a real bump in people looking to buy themselves toys, either from the, I've had a crap couple of months, I want to go and have something fun, I want to make myself feel better, or just life's too short. I've been putting off that purchase, I'd like to do it now. So we've seen a real bounce there. We've seen some hugely innovative stuff from some of the retailers that I've been trying to share through some of the best practice advice we've been giving out, because it has forced people to do things in a different way. The one thing we have seen in the Chinese market, obviously that has bounced back up, but we've seen the brands come in, particularly in the sort of premium segment, with some pretty heavy incentives. The level of projected supply of vehicles for most brands in the UK for the second half of this year is pretty strong. Some brands are even coming in with targets above the original ones we had for 2020. So clearly that's going to be a bit of a stretch. So we may well need to see some incentives come to help dealers get those cars out to real customers. But it looks like we might have a reasonably busy second half, obviously subject to what happens in the wider economy.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have to leave it there, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to chat to you. It'd be good to catch up in the next couple of months, really, to see how the picture's changed. So tomorrow we've got Redgate Lodge's Scott Sibley, and then we've got Edward Lovett from Collecting Cars. That should be a pretty good show, that one. If you want to get involved in car dealer lives like these, then you can email me, james.batchelor@blackballmedia.co.uk, or James Baggett, james@blackballmedia.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter @JRRBachelor and James Baggett @CarDealerEd, and we're both on LinkedIn, so please do get in touch. If you want to have some breaking news sent to your phone, then we've set up Car Dealer Magazine WhatsApp groups. Get in touch with those for the links to those. And on our website, you'll have the full schedule of all upcoming Car Dealer Lives. Thanks again to Mike for giving up his time today, which just leads me to say thank you and bye-bye.